While I did ride bikes a lot growing up, my main passion was off-roading, four-wheeling, jeeping, whatever you want to call it. Getting out on a trail and testing my driving skills and vehicle capabilities was an absolute blast, but one of my favorite parts was doing the actual work and maintenance. I never did anything too complicated beyond the basic maintenance, installing new suspension, and replacing axle shafts, but with no background in cars, it was a really fun and admittedly expensive experience. So when I got married and my wife was the breadwinner as I finished school, I decided it was probably a good idea to find a less expensive hobby that could still satisfy my love to explore and tinker. I ended up getting back into biking, and as you can probably tell, it's something that has stuck around since then. But it's not just the riding that I enjoy. I love to work on bikes too. Whether it's doing a full build from the frame up or repurposing a bike for a different use case, fixing bikes is really fun and way less expensive than fixing and modifying a truck. In this video, I'm going to explain why you should learn how to work on your own bike and share some of the benefits of having some mechanical know-how. When I first started working on cars, I was extremely intimidated and really overwhelmed. While it seemed like everything was super complex at first, I quickly learned that a lot of what I wanted to do was simple and straightforward. The same goes for bike mechanics. Sure, there are some things that require some real skills, wheel building for example, but most of the basic stuff is just that, basic. Adjusting your derailleur, going tubeless, and even bleeding your brakes are all easier than you probably think. After a little bit of practice and over some time, you'll be able to perform most routine maintenance in a couple of hours at most. I'm sure at this point someone is down in the comments writing, "But Casey, you need all of these expensive special tools." And guess what? That's not really true. There are some specialty tools that are a necessity, but a lot of the more common ones can basically be created at home. For example, when removing a cassette, you need some way to hold the cassette while removing the lock ring. A specialty tool called a chain whip does the job, but I didn't want to buy one. So I took an old chain, a piece of wood, and a nail, and I created my own that has worked great for years. You can't do this for every specialty tool, but it still saves some money on the more common ones. So back to my car example. Many repairs and modifications are not only high in price, but they're high in risk. Don't put enough oil in and your engine's gonna have a real bad day. Find yourself in over your head with a repair or modification, you're gonna have to get it towed to a shop for someone else to fix it. On a bike, there's not a whole lot that can go critically wrong, and in most cases, you'll notice before any serious damage or injury occurs. If you don't put enough sealant in your tubeless tires, it probably won't seal that puncture and you'll need to put a tube or plug in. Don't tighten the chainring bolts to spec on your one by conversion and you'll have a creak. But even if you try to tackle a suspension fluid change or wheel build and find yourself in over your head, it's still pretty easy to take your bike to a shop. For most people, a bike is also primarily just a way to have fun, not a highly expensive mode of transportation. So there's time to tinker and learn, which isn't always the case when maybe that car that you're working on is something you need to get to work. Now that I've broken down some of the common barriers keeping people from working on their bike, let's go over some of the benefits. Taking your bike into a shop for routine maintenance or an upgrade means not only paying for the parts themselves, but the labor that goes into it. On top of that added cost, I've also found that most good shops are so busy that you might not have your bike back for a week or more. If you can fix something on your own, then you save yourself both labor costs and time because you can do it as soon as you want. This is especially true with some of the easier stuff, such as replacing cables, adjusting shifters, and replacing consumable parts like chains, tires, and cassettes. You can even save a little bit more money on the cost of parts by spending time online searching for the best deal. There's certain things that I would still probably take my bike in for, like having parts warrantied or for some special bearing replacements, but those are the exception, not the rule. I also want to say that I'm all for supporting your local bike shop, and I think they're a hugely vital part of biking culture. When purchasing a new bike or parts, I usually at least check with mine to see what they have in stock, and sometimes they actually end up being the best option. Another major benefit to working on your own bike means that when something goes wrong out on the trail or the road, you can usually diagnose and fix the problem. You may even find yourself carrying spare parts like a chain link and a shifter cable, so that if something goes really wrong, you're prepared. Most riders out there know how to throw a tube in a tire when they get a flat, but there are other things that can and do go wrong that can easily be fixed with just a multi-tool. I'm sure we can all relate to the frustrating experience of an improperly adjusted derailleur. Whether the cable has stretched or the drivetrain is a little dirty, it's helpful to know how to make small adjustments when things just aren't shifting right. As an added bonus, you're also able to help other riders you run into that may be having problems with their own bike, and who doesn't like helping someone in need? The last benefit of being your own bike mechanic is that it gives you an understanding of how things actually function. It's not just about having random facts in your head about how a suspension fork works though. With that understanding, you can now make better decisions on how to adjust your fork pressure, high and low speed compression, and rebound settings. Once you understand the mechanics behind these components, you're then able to tune it to fit your preferences and needs. It might even help you be able to cut through the marketing mumbo jumbo and decide if that new version really is as much of a game changer as they claim. There's very few downsides to fixing your own bike, and most of the ones that do exist are pretty inconsequential. I know that working on your own bike isn't for everyone and may be intimidating to some more than others, but it'd be hard to argue that someone shouldn't at least know how to do the basics. Things like wheel building, press fit bearing replacement, and suspension overhauls are good examples of things that take expensive specialty tools or some straight up talent and skill, but that doesn't mean you can't learn to upgrade your drivetrain. I hope this video inspires you to tackle your next yearly tune-up, upgrade, or repair, and if it did, let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to show your support, and so you don't miss out on content that I put out in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.